Good morning, everybody. This is T. Falcon Napier. This week we're up to number 14, and that's on lack of competitive differentiation. We're trying to answer the question, what makes me so special? And let's kind of hit the situation for what it is. The truly successful professionals are the ones that have established a brand for themselves. So whether in content, delivery, or marketing, they've created an edge over their competition. Your goal is to set yourself apart from your peers by as many unique attributes as possible. And interestingly enough, everybody thinks they're doing a pretty solid job of that. And so let's take a little look at the research that we've been doing about our population and see where you fit in. So before I explain what it is you're looking at, although all of you, I think, have gone through at least the basic program intention management, you should certainly be able to understand what these diagrams mean as I work my way through them. But for just a second, I want all of you to think about this particular activity and rate yourself. So the activity is to differentiate yourself from your competitor in relevant, meaningful ways. Differentiate yourself from your competitors in ways that are relevant and meaningful. How would you rate your ability to do that with a scale of 0 to 12, 0 being low, 12 being high? How would you rate right now your ability to differentiate yourself in relevant and meaningful ways from your competition? Okay, and get that number right in your head. And then the second question is, how challenging do you think that is right now on a scale of 0 to 12, with 0 being effortless and 12 being impossible? How challenging do you think it is to differentiate yourself from your competitors in relevant and meaningful ways? Okay, now once you got those two coordinates, again, we got lots of people arriving, so we're just doing a kind of a quick self-assessment right here. The subject again, differentiating yourself from your competition in relevant and meaningful ways. So I just want to make sure you're finding where you are on the grid. So how do you rate your ability to do that today, differentiate yourself in meaningful ways? And how challenging do you think it is? Again, 0 to 12. So you should end up with two coordinates. Now, when you find those two coordinates, all right, you have those two coordinates. I want you to find where that spot is on the change grid. So for example, Daniel sent me his information. He said his ability is a 6 and the challenge is a 6. So we're 6 for ability. You see me squiggling around right there. And 6 for challenge. See me squiggling around up there a little bit. Where those two perceptions intersect would be right there in the exact center of the change grid. And so, Daniel, that's where you are right today anyway. So just kind of watch that spot as we work our way through this. Another one of you said that your current ability to do it is a 7 and the challenge is a 9. So I go to challenge of 7, or rather the ability for 7 right here. Challenge of 9 up here where that orange line is. That puts you right there on the change grid. And one more said your ability to do it was an 11 and the challenge is a 1. So you gave yourself an 11. That's way down here at the bottom of the change grid. Challenge of a 1. That would put you way down here in the downgrid danger zone of apathy, which we'll get to that in a little while. So again, just as I'm showing you these research results, I just want you to kind of update them, at least in your own head, so you know where you are. Now, as we look at this is how this whole population is viewing this right now. And again, this is, I think, 216, maybe 218 people that are doing this. The triangle represents the average ratings that the respondents provided, and the diamond is a reflection of the ideal rating. So where are you is the as on average is that triangle. Where you should be is that diamond. Now again, averages are averages, and so I don't know they really represent anybody. In this particular case, they might represent one particular person. You're really an individual, and you're floating somewhere here on the change grid in your own little spot. So Daniel's over here, and one of you is up here, and somebody else is down here, and looks like a bunch of other people have now joined in. So the point is, you got your own spot. That's what I want you to be thinking about as I go through this. You need to be where this diamond is. We want you to be a good, solid driver. So let's talk about where the population is right now. So as far as the level of tension is concerned, people are in power on average. Now, again, you got to look at your individual location, because one of you that shared your numbers, you're down here in apathy. So just kind of notice, where are you? What level of tension are you experiencing? Now, again, all of you should have gone through the basics of tension management, so you know enough about the levels of tension to know what that means. We want you to be in power. We want you to be feeling very confident. We want you to be very logical about this. Now, when it comes to the energy that we want you to experience right now, the average individual is an amiable driver. And that means that on average, the members of our community want to do something about differentiation. So they have a little bit of drive to do it. But the drive is being moderated by the secondary amiable energy. The amiable energy wants to be of service. And so if I just put those two things together, right now, when it comes to differentiating yourselves, the average person wants to move this forward by being of greater service. And I think that there are lots of ways that you can differentiate yourself by focusing on the service element. But it is only one of the possible possibilities here as far as secondary energies are concerned. And so you can also differentiate yourself as an analytical driver. An analytical driver would differentiate themselves by actually doing an inventory, identifying all the different ways that their competition is representing themselves to the buying public, and then finding a way to meet and exceed whatever that happens to be. If you don't know what your competition is doing, how could you begin to know that you have differentiated yourself? And so a great deal of success in differentiation is about performing a nice little analysis. So it's great that you want to be a service and you're focusing on service issues, but let's also look at facts that really prove that you are, someone who has, differentiators already in place. Expressive drivers, that's a differentiation by being very energizing and exciting and enthusiastic and inspiring and motivating. And maybe that personality is something that could differentiate you. Or that there's the driven driver, the one who's going to guarantee you're going to get the outcome you're looking for. They're going to make it happen one way or another. So maybe they're going to do it by being supportive. Maybe they're going to do it by dragging you kicking and screaming into whatever the outcome is that you really wanted. Now, where should you be? We believe that in order for you to do the absolute best job of differentiating yourself from your competition, you need to be right in the exact center of that whole driver region. We want you to be balanced and flexible so that you can see the service-oriented ways that you can do it, you can differentiate yourself, that you can get into that analytical mode and really do the research to justify your belief, if nothing else. We want you to be upbeat and energetic, and we want you to be determined to make it all happen. We want to see this balance as far as this activity is concerned. So right now, the average individual is not too far away, but because they're leaning so heavily as an amiable driver and not as that expressive, driven, or analytical energy, they're missing some insights about their positioning and about their ability to differentiate further. And we want to fix that. So that's why we want you to be where you are. Now, taking a step further, we want people to be very much on that brink of engagement, engagement to execution right there. We want it all to be very solid. That's a great spot for that to be. And right now we've got people that are showing a strong intention leaning towards engagement around doing it. And so this tells me that not only is the average person in our population coming at this from much more of a service oriented sort of perspective, but they're also not doing it yet. They have an intention to do it and they might be tipping their toe a little bit into differentiation, but I don't think they've really done it. And on average, that would be there. Now, why is that? Well, I think it has a large part to do with how low people are rating their ability to differentiate themselves. I mean, look at how many people rated their ability 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And several of you who've shared your numbers with me on today's call, that's where you're plotting. So you're acknowledging, I don't know how to differentiate myself as effectively as I know I should. But what about all these people who are plotting downgrid, who are not only not engaged, they don't their intention is more of a, yeah, someday that might be a good idea, or this awareness like, yeah, I guess I'm really not all that different. I guess I really don't know how different I am. Oh well. This energy they have being down there in power, apathy, and apathy. That's not enough to kick them into any kind of meaningful gear. And so this average person, if you were all this average actually there, you'd be doing okay. But a great many of the population either have too much challenge, or too little challenge. Both of those can be problematic. And a great many of them have too low of an ability to do what's going on. So hopefully today I'll be able to give you guys some insights about ways that you can differentiate yourself a bit more effectively. One last thing I'll show you is that there are people that are in the danger zone. And some of you are so much about differentiation that you are plotting in the outgrid danger zone. And it's wonderful that you're executing, and it's wonderful that you've got all that great confidence. But this can come across as being a bit of a bull in a china shop. And so, as you go about there trying to differentiate yourselves in ways that are relevant and meaningful, let's not lose sight of diplomacy, because people don't necessarily hire you just because you're different. And if one of your differentiators is that you are that bull in the china shop, that might not be the kind of differentiator you're really looking for. So these upgrade danger zone individuals, and there's what, 8 of them out of 217 or so people. Not a huge percentage, but nevertheless, these need to watch out for it. We got one person floating the upgrade danger zone in a panic situation around it. I would imagine they're quite new. And we have a bunch of people, though, that are getting down into the downgrade danger zone where they're starting to take things very much for granted. They're just they have this illusion. They have an assumption that everything is under control. But as you all learned in your basic tension management training, that assumption of control is going to move into an illusion of control as the person moves further and further downgrid and remains there for a longer and longer period of time. So the world keeps changing. They didn't notice. They're down in apathy. And so it makes you wonder if we really put these, how many are there? A good 10 or 12 people down here. If we put them to the test, I wonder how many of them are actually differentiated in any sort of way that would be deemed relevant or meaningful. And so we got to have a little wake up call. Remember, we talked about having the great downgrid cleanup day. Every one of these skill areas that you're reporting this level of mastery in, you need to periodically, deliberately revisit each of these activities just to check in to make sure you haven't fallen under an illusion of things being in control. Okay, so with that, let's get into the points to ponder for today's subject. Being different simply to be different isn't enough. There's a lot of people that we've met that differentiate themselves in ways that border on or step deeply into the odd. And so don't differentiate yourself in some way that makes you stand up as an oddity. Yes, it will get you attention. Yes, it will get you remembered. But being different simply to be different isn't what this is all about. If you really want to differentiate yourself in a way that's going to help your business, it only matters if you're different in ways that matter to your client. And so lock those two little matters in there. It only matters if you're different in ways that matter to your clients. And so what you want to do is try to determine as many ways as you can that you would make a difference to your client. And if you can identify some of those differences that are not being satisfied, then and you turn around and satisfy them, now you can matter to them by being different in a way that matters to them. And that gets us to the last little point to ponder, and that's the difference between differentiation versus domination. Um, to be different is to capture the attention of others, and hopefully you're capturing their attention in ways that matter to them. That could definitely help your business. But there's a lot of room out there for a lot of people who have been well differentiated to go there and build the kinds of practices they might like to have. And that could satisfy you. It could satisfy the vast majority of people who embark on a career in this industry. But what about domination? Domination means that you always win. Domination means that even up against your differentiated competitors, you still win over all of them. So we're talking about taking differentiation not to just a competitive point, but to a point of great, well, I'm going to say superiority, but I just mean domination. Nobody can beat you if you choose to approach the project or whatever. You're the shoe-in for whatever's going on. Now, I'm not suggesting that people should aspire to domination, and I'm not suggesting that it's necessary for you to do so. I'm just saying that for those of you who really, really want to differentiate yourself as robustly as possible, what you're really aiming for is domination. Okay, just something to think about where you fit in on all that. Okay, so let's see. Now, a lot of people think they're already differentiated. In fact, let me read you a little excerpt from an article I wrote a few years back. In fact, I'll just kind of set the stage with this a little bit. Some of the information is a bit outdated. It might be interesting to do that. So, there's no doubt about it. When it comes to the world of speaking, training, coaching, and consulting, it's a highly competitive buyer's market. Industry wide, there are literally tens of thousands of professionals from which to choose. And that, by the way, is just in the US. How competitive is it? Let's say you're a client looking for a keynote speaker for your company's annual leadership conference. The National Speakers Association website lists 739 members offering keynote presentations on the subject of leadership alone. Even at the elite level, the Washington Speakers Bureau, which is one of the most prestigious, exclusive, and respected bureaus in the world, lists 116 leadership experts. That's a lot of speakers to compete against. The reality for coaches is even more severe. If you're looking for a personal coach, findacoach.com lists over 2,200, and that represents a mere fraction of the more than 30,000 member coaches of Coachville. And I don't know the current statistic for the ICF membership, but you are looking at tens of thousands of members. On the trainer side of things, if we looked at the membership in the American Society for Training and Development, they have over 75,000 members. Now, in all fairness, half of those members hold inside positions inside of corporate settings, but that still means they've got 37,500 independent trainers that are out there competing for the work. And so it's severe that's out there. The truth is that who gets hired and who doesn't is often a matter of competitive differentiation. And businesses that wish to grow are constantly watching what their competition is doing and repositioning themselves accordingly. And that's just not our industry, that's obviously all businesses. Those that stop watching and stop repositioning ensure a loss of their competitive advantages and ultimately the demise of their businesses. Achieving competitive differentiation is important because it offers you three things. Number one, it reduces the pool of competitors to which a prospect can compare you, putting you in a more exclusive category. Number two, it increases your perceived value in the marketplace, allowing you to command higher fees with less resistance. And number three, it affords you greater notoriety and the chance for increased exposure, often at little or no cost to you. And so soak in those three reasons for differentiation. And then I'm going to ask you guys to weigh in, and I want you to give yourself a letter grade before I talk about all the differentiators so that you can tell me how good of a job you think you're really doing right now. So right now, again, why you want to be very strongly competitively differentiated is because it reduces the pool of competitors you get compared to, it increases your perceived value, and it affords you greater notoriety, often for free. What grade would you give yourselves right now when it comes to your success at differentiating yourself from your competition? And you can give me a letter grade if you want. You can give me a score on 1 to 10 if you want, or whatever scale you really want. Just kind of curious, where would you give yourself? Okay. All right, and you guys are giving yourself rather average kind of ratings. I mean, I got somebody gave themselves a C, a six, a B minus, a D. Um, let's see. Okay, I have a D with periods of B plus, so B minus. All right, so you guys are all acknowledging there's some work to be done here, but I want you to know there's reason why you want to do this work. Those three things alone, I think, stand in great representation of that. Now, in this study, let me give you a little bit of the statistical side of things. In our study, 100% of the respondents said that differentiating themselves from their competitors was very important to the success of their type of business. Nobody rated the importance of it, even on average. So everyone says that this is a really important thing. Yet 61% said that their competitive differentiation was not a significant problem for them based on where they're plotting on the change grid. And another 14% rated it as only a mild problem. So think about that. 100% say that it's very important, and 75% of them over are saying that it's only a mild to a less than significant problem for them. So while the majority of respondents don't think they have a problem, the study showed that only 18% were actually paying any meaningful amount of attention to keeping themselves differentiated, or keeping differentiation from becoming an issue in the growth of their business. And so this is where I think we got a lot of people that have this assumption of control, even this illusion of control. And so today, I just want to shake things up a little bit. And now, as I go through these, this is certainly not all the material. I was looking at my little reference notes for this, and we've done this series now at least, I don't know, half a dozen times. And at one point in time, we asked people to volunteer to take notes, to be scribe, and then everyone turned their notes over to me. And so I've got a collection of all those notes about all these different areas. And it seems like for some of these areas of differentiation, we've got far more than the bullet points that I'll be showing you on today's call. But, again, just try to fill an hour and give you some ideas. So there are 5 areas of differentiation we're going to be looking at. Market differentiation. How do you stand out as far as the marketplace is concerned? Program differentiation. This is, again, about what you're actually offering. Service differentiation. How you're offering it. Style differentiation. How you go about doing whatever it is that you do. And image differentiation. What is it that really makes you someone who's memorable to me? So let's take a look at the market differentiation elements first. And so what we really are exploring here is, um, do you have a way that you stand out of the marketplace? So let's talk about this first little bullet point here: creating a market versus pursuing a market. If you are pursuing a market, are you more likely to differentiate yourself versus creating a market? So, is it better to create a market or exploit an existing market? Is it easier to find a market with no expert, or to find a marketplace that has established experts and then position yourself against those existing experts? So this is what we want you guys to make a decision. And I'm not saying you have to do one or the other. I'm asking you, what do you think you're doing right now? Are you more about creating a new market for your service? In which case, if you can successfully create that market, you are automatically differentiated because nobody else is doing it. And so, the first law of marketing states that it's better to be first than it is to be better. And so, if you can actually create a brand new market for whatever it is that you're doing, great, you own it. That's a differentiator. But how many of you are really kind of going like, that's not my reality? My reality is that I do things that other people do and have done for a long while and are likely to continue doing for a long while. I need to pursue an existing marketplace. I need to find differentiation inside of this particular marketplace. Again, you guys can type me some answers to this if you'd like. Kind of curious. Are you more about creating that new market or pursuing the market? Obviously, if you have some sort of program, product, or service that you believe could be of great value to an unestablished market place, a group of people who don't even know that they need you yet, and you can convince them, wonderful. And so if you've got something like that, let's make sure you put some energy into that. But along the way, how many of you are going to continue offering services, providing programs to that do compete with that? Like, as I've said, if you're going to be a trainer out there and you expect to survive any economic downturn, there's a few subjects you'd better have in your set of offerings. Sales and leadership withstand the damage that so often occurs with any kind of economic downturn. And so most people who really want to have a stable, reliable business for a long time to come are going to have some sorts of products and services that others are offering, and they're going to have some that are unique to them. And so just think about that. You want to differentiate yourself, you either need to create a new market or you're going to need to find ways to stand out inside of that competitive market, which is obviously what we're getting into in these other umpteen bullet points. So the next one, are you a generalist or are you a specialist? So obviously, a generalist is someone who can do a little bit of everything, and that's really great under a lot of circumstances. But there's also a case to be made for becoming a specialist. Obviously, if you can set yourself up to be a true specialist in a marketplace, whether that marketplace currently exists or that market is one that you are creating, if you can stand out as a true specialist, a true expert in that particular area, this is a big differentiator. But if you are someone who is going in and working with smaller businesses where you're dealing with executives who have to do all of it, they got to be involved with sales and the product side and administrative stuff and leadership stuff. They probably prefer to deal with someone who is a generalist and then call in specialists as necessary. You may say, I want to be a generalist. In the world of medicine, there is a huge place for general GPs, but we still need our specialists that are out there. Obviously, the specialists have those differentiators, but you could also market yourself as a generalist, and that being one of your biggest differentiators. So let's getting lots of comments now. Let's check in on this. Many people don't know what they don't know. That's where I'm operating, and that's very much was the mindset of Steve Jobs, and many others like him. He said that he needed to come up with products that people don't even know they want yet. And so he was constantly trying to create the new markets. And hopefully, we love Apple. So hopefully they're going to continue to do that. All right. Now, you can also differentiate yourself by being that chameleon. So let me talk about this is about adapting to the industry you're in. So that industry is constantly changing. If you can differentiate yourself by being that chameleon, letting people know that the reason why they want to work with you is because you can not only address their issue in the present moment, but you understand how that issue came to be because you've been working with them and evolving as they have evolved. So now you're beyond a specialist. A specialist, I tend to think about more like you specialize in delivering a particular subject or a particular service. The chameleon says, no. I'm focusing on a particular industry and I am going to evolve as that evolves. And I'm going to let people know that I've been part of that evolution. I've watched this whole industry change. And not only do I know about its past and about its present, but I also know where it's heading because I am not only one who is addressing the needs of this industry, but I am anticipating and positioning myself to continue to be of service, if not even lead that change as it occurs through there. So if you're willing to be super flexible, be that chameleon, adapt to whatever it is that's going on, that would really be great. Working with C-suite. Yeah, exactly. Working with C-suite level people. All right. Now, the next thing you can do for market differentiation is you got to be able to trump the competition. And so you have to think about this. If you are pursuing an existing market and you are more of a generalist, or you are pursuing a particular market and you're one of many self-proclaimed specialists in that area, and you've even been adapting, so there's a lot of chameleons that are out there, you have to be able to trump your competition. Now, to trump your competition, and I'm going to ask you guys to grade yourself on this one in just a second as well. To trump your competition, you have to adapt to the industry you're in. That means you need to really understand what your customers want, and then you target those particular needs. So what do they want in the moment? What do they want in the future? And you're constantly targeting that. So that's kind of like the cost of admission. But what you need to do is then figure out a way to take your service above and beyond what the competition is doing. So for example, if the competition is offering someone access to your podcast, your live podcasts, you can trump that by saying, not only do I invite you to the live podcasts, I give you access to the library of all the podcasts that I've ever done. You can trump it even further that my podcasts are actually driven by the people that are listening to them. They're the ones that are submitting whatever the questions happen to be. So I don't have this, or mine are actually live. I don't just do them in a studio and then have those recordings played out. This is it. So you can't trump the competition until you really understand what the competition is doing. Now, what makes it particularly difficult for human development professionals in private practice to trump the competition is that they don't even know that they're in a competitive situation. I mean, certain level, they obviously know it, but that's not the way their head works. They're just out there kind of going like, hey, I'm looking for clients. I'm looking for clients. They don't think about, wait, there's lots of other people out there that are also looking for clients, the same clients to deliver similar, if not identical services. I have to make sure that I can compete against them. What do they do? So if I said to you guys right now, could you please name for me the 10 biggest competitors that you face in the marketplace? The 10 biggest competitors you face in your marketplace. Can you even do that? Have you actually even stopped for a moment and said, well, wait a second, who is it that I actually compete against? Do I bump into other people? Do I, or, am I just fortunate enough that I've never stumbled across a situation where I'm up against a competitor? Is that the situation? Now, if that is the situation, you've never been up against a competitor, I would suggest to you that you're dealing with fringe business. You're dealing with the stuff that no one else even knows about. It's under the radar. It's not even on the map. And so, is that really where the greatest opportunities for you lie, or is it more the case that um, prospective customers who shop around and talk to competitors end up being better clients who have a greater level of regard for what you do and are more likely to compensate you at a higher level. So I think there's a lot of people out there who think like, no, I'm doing so good, I don't have any competitors. Well, I would wonder then, are you actually playing the real game, or are you just taking up the little side bits and pieces that are companies that probably really aren't playing the game either? And so, you get to position yourself in this industry wherever you want to be. Today, you might be dealing with individual clients who run individual businesses or have one or two employees. Meanwhile, today, there are people just like you who are dealing with individuals that are in the C suite of the largest corporations on the planet. So we all do the same thing all day long. We each try to find someone to talk to about helping them. What's the big difference whether we talk to someone who runs a tiny little one person organization versus someone who runs a very large corporation? The difference is one of opportunity and impact. And so, you got to think about that a little bit. If you aren't up against competition, then you got to think about that. Do I want to do that, or am I content dealing with whatever this business is I kind of stumble across? Am I content with that? We do talk to a lot of human development professionals, on a daily basis, let alone overall. And the question we often ask is, are you making as much money as you really want to be making? Are you as busy as you really want to be? And obviously, the sweeping majority of them say, no, I do have time in my schedule. Yes, I am doing work that I otherwise would not have chosen to do. I don't ideally want because I need the business, I need the revenue. And so I think we've got a lot of people that are out there that are working on this fringe, and these people are not finding enough of that fringe opportunity to meet their needs. So they either got to get a lot better at finding these little side opportunities, these smaller scale opportunities, or they got to step into the game and be ready to compete. Well, who are your competitors? Do you really know who you're up against? Barney's sharing he can do 5. His current project today is up against all competitors serving the federal government. Yeah, and again, a lot of people are going to throw their bid into that decision. But how many of them are really worthy competitors? Who's out there really getting the business? Don't be afraid of your competition. Your competition serves as a role model for you. And so if you've got some company out there that keeps on winning and winning and winning, you got to ask yourself, what is it that they're doing? What are they offering that gets them this win over and over? And I promise you, it's not that they're low priced. The largest training organizations, the largest coaching organizations, the largest consulting firms in the world charge premium prices. And so it can't be about the money that they're spending for the services. That's not the way to differentiate yourself, is by being cheap. You got to ask yourself, what is it that they're bringing to the table that allows them to command so much of the opportunity that's out there? And whatever those things are, you've got to be willing to meet or trump in order to put yourself into a nice competitive stand. You can't do that till you know who those competitors happen to be. Okay, now only a couple of you weighed in on that one, so I'm going to believe that silence is a confession. So you guys, you really need to think about this. Who are my competitors? Now, let's assume for a second that you say, well, I don't want to get in there and be competing for all these giant kinds of deals. I don't want to go up against big five accounting firms and all that sort of stuff. But I would like to keep my calendar nice and full, and I'm happy working with these smaller opportunities, these smaller businesses. Okay, great. There's a lot of people then that you're still competing against. Don't think that you're the only one who's out there looking for these little opportunities. In fact, as I said, statistically, the vast majority of the people in the human development industry are all out there scrambling to find these smaller opportunities that fill their schedule. You're probably in a more competitive situation than the people that are really out there playing the big game. So you got to ask yourself then, what am I doing to at least stand out from these other people that are pursuing the same thing? This is about spotlighting whatever your strengths might happen to be. Now, it's not a strength just because you're good at it. It's a strength. Well, it's a differentiated strength because you're good at it and better at it than anybody else is, and you can prove it. And so, if I said to you guys, make a list of your strengths, you could probably do that. And if I said to you, are those strengths actually strengths that meet or exceed the strength that your individual competitors are experiencing? So, do you really meet or exceed the strength that they have in that particular aspect of business delivery or whatever? Now you got to then go like, I've got to trump those things. I've got to do that whenever I can, and I got to put a spotlight on those things. So you can test this out in your own business. Can you name your competitors? Can you name what your strengths are? Then can you evaluate your strengths against those competitors? And then can you look at your existing marketing materials, your website, and anything else that you're using, and ask yourself, am I putting a spotlight on those things that make me different than everybody else? Or am I really just getting lost in the similarities that I seem to have with everyone? And then you can take it to the final test. If we were to interview your prospects, interview your clients, interview people in the general public who should be aware of you, would they tell me that you have these strengths and these strengths meet or exceed the strengths of your competitors? So you get the idea. You have to really say this is test time. This is time for you to take an inventory against your competition and truly identify the areas in which you are better. A lot of people, particularly coaches, struggle with this because they feel that there is something inappropriate about judging their competitors, or something that somehow or another unkind about saying, I am better than, so and so in this area, in this area, in this area. They think like somehow that's disrespectful or whatever. It's not supportive of the other individual. Well, we're not trying to be supportive. We're trying to be competitive. Now, I'm not saying you're going to say to the whole world, I'm better than so and so, and I'm better than so and so. I mean, yeah, come on, let's just assume that there's a certain level of diplomacy and competitive savviness that's going to be applied to everything you ultimately say in a print or a word or deed. But you still got to, at least in your head, kind of know, like, yeah, I am better than so and so, and they might be good at this and good at this and good at this, but I'm better and I can prove it, and I'm better about that and I can prove it, and I'm better about that and I can prove it. And so if I put you in your room, in a room with all of your colleagues, would you feel like you belong at the top of that pack, at the bottom of the pack, someplace in the middle? Where do you feel you belong inside of that? And yes, to answer that question, you're going to have to judge, and you got to be okay with that if you're interested in competing and differentiating yourself more effectively. Again, I'm not telling you your heart's not in the right place, and I'm not telling you you're going to get in their face and belittle and degrade them. But in your own head, you should certainly, to thine own self be true. And so, what is really your truth? And how would that stack up against your competitor? Let's see if you're okay with that. Um, Lynn sharing this. I know who they are, but several office offer service for free. They might offer services for free, but somewhere or another, there's got to be a financial model. I mean, even if they're a volunteer organization, someone's got to pay to keep the lights on. So, how are they then leveraging that service that they seem to be giving away for free to bring them business that they really want, and it's really paying them? And if the case is, and we have stumbled across this, that there's a company who has carved out a niche for themselves where 99% of their revenue is delivering a particular service. And then a competitor comes along and says, we're going to provide that for free. Well, now you're in serious, serious trouble because unless you can quickly expand your offerings, then what do you now have to offer that would make them want to hire you over someone else? The example I can give for you this is the check printing industry. So for the longest time, people wanted to have their own checks printed and paid. There were companies out there going to different companies and saying, this is how much it's going to cost to have your checks printed. This is back in the day, obviously, where checks were on pieces of paper. And then along came some of the bigger banks and said, no, 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 we want your business, so we'll pay for all of your checks. We'll just give you checks to do that. It's kind of like suddenly those printing companies had to change their strategy. So it does happen. It happens in all kinds of things. Collaborating is expanding my operation and abilities, not being stagnant is important to me. Yeah, and I think that, well, as we're collaborating with people, here's the thing that I think is so interesting about these collaborative kinds of environments. When we say, I want to get together a group of people so we can collaborate. When we're collaborating, basically the belief is that every person coming into the collaboration is going to be equal in their potential to contribute something of value to the collaboration, knowing that as they contribute what they have of value, they will also receive from the collaboration something that is equally of value. So the thought has always been that everyone's coming to contribute something that the rest of us don't have, and we're going to all walk away with something that we receive in exchange for our contribution. That's the theory, and that's a really, wonderful, place to be in the world of business harmony and spiritual balance and everything else that goes along with it. Sadly, that's not how these things usually turn out. Usually, what happens is that in these little collaborative groups, there are a lot of people that are coming that are experts, proven track record, connections, product service galore. And there's a lot of people who want to glom onto those people. And so, whether they call these things strategic alliances, whatever that they end up calling these things, there is an imbalance. And ultimately, if you really want collaboration to work, you need to build your own set of colleagues that you can trust that will, bring stuff of value and continue to bring it. And they are not there to take more than they bring to you. There's this equality that's throughout all that. But along the way, you're going to end up meeting a lot of people who are there to drain you with the promise of bringing you something that you're never going to get. And you're going to need to kind of like cull the herd. So I go back, I'm harping on this only to say that the act of choosing your collaborative partners is this act of judging. It is this act of evaluating your colleagues slash competitors and saying, here's what they're great at that I'm not great at. Here's what I'm great at that they're not great at. Now we've all got things we can spotlight individually, and we can all benefit from one another to add a little bit more breadth and depth to the work that we do and the things that we offer. So yeah, now I think collaboration is great. What if you were that maverick who actually already knew that what you had was different enough, better enough, you could compete strongly? You would probably not be as likely to want to collaborate, or now you're only collaborating with other top stars that are in the field. Wouldn't that be great to have a mastermind group of the top 10 people in your industry, and they're the top 10 because they pass muster across a whole set of different credentials. Anyway, we could talk about that for a good long while to come, but yeah, get the idea. Uh, yeah, absolutely true. Discovering the value of others who take action is key. This is exactly right. I just, I feel like I've paid my dues. I don't know that I've gotten back quite what I would like to have gotten. Anyway, those are some of the ways you can differentiate yourself as far as the market part is concerned. Obviously, the key to this is research. It is that analytical driver energy that is going to support you best in doing this. Right now, again, the average person is plotting as an amiable driver, coming at this whole question of differentiation from a heart space. I want you to become an analytical driver. Come at this puzzle from a logical place, a strategic place, and this requires you to be able to do the assessments, do the judgments that we just went forward on. Okay, so now let's talk about program differentiation. Program differentiation, this is about offering uncommon subjects that are vital to your clients or more common subjects that have been customized specifically for their industry. So this is actually one of the easier areas that you can put your differentiators into place. And for those of you who are more on the service side, that's the next screen we'll be looking at. But if you're actually offering a program of some sort, then let's just kind of look at this. Now, you could do a survey to do this. Let's say you want to go like, well, I want to differentiate myself by offering an uncommon subject. That's fine. That does not change my warning I gave you earlier that just says if you want to build a training organization, you need to make sure that you've got those subjects that will survive an economic downturn. And I assure you, things like what was the one that was about shaking hands and smiling? I forget what it was, but it was like social interaction 1-on-1 or sandbox 101, how to project a more positive thing. These kinds of subjects, as great as they are when times are good, these are the things that get crossed out when the budget gets tight. And but that being said, when times are good, we want those good smile workshops. We want those fun little things that otherwise would not be viewed as mission critical. These could be viewed as something that's like mission enhancing or something like that. Not critical, but could be a good thing to have. So it's fine for you to say, I do have a subject that no one else is offering that is something that people would benefit from, even if I've got to, create that market. It's an uncommon subject. And I think that could be of great value. Trust me when I say I know about this. I'm the one who created the subject of tension management. I'm the only one who does it. I mean, you guys know we have the registered trademark on productive tension, on tension management, this whole concept. So I get it. We're at the front end of this uncommon subject. But luckily, that subject applies to things like sales, like leadership, like these things that are mission critical. And so I can focus on my uncommon subject while I still have the foundation of the practical application of it in people's current mindset. So the point is, I can do the common subjects in uncommon ways, but I can also offer uncommon subjects. And so if you want to differentiate yourself, then find those uncommon subjects, or find a way to talk about common subjects in uncommon ways, come at it from a different sort of an angle. For example, one of the things that I've noticed is getting increasingly popular among the corporate clients that we work with is coaching. So there's a lot of awareness of the value of coaching, and more companies are saying we want to bring coach training into our organization so that we can turn all the managers into coaches. Now, what a great heyday for the coaching schools who are getting approached to come in and offer such programming. Unfortunately, putting a manager through a coach training program does not turn them into a coach. Good coaches have a certain personality that lends itself to the coaching behavior set and the coaching philosophy and everything that goes along with it. I can put that manager through coach training, and yeah, I'll have some impact and improvement with any luck at all, but I am not going to turn them into a coach. It's just not how their mind works. And really, it's not what they're asked to do on an ongoing basis. So, but if you could say, no, I can come in and I can teach your managers how to do the basics of coaching, but do it in a way that actually naturally integrates into the work they're doing with their employees each and every day, you might have yourself a differentiator in a subject that does have a lot of appeal and growing interest that's out there. But I promise you, it's all going to fall by the wayside if we can't find a way to help managers apply these concepts and tools of coaching in a way that actually fits in with the work that they do with their employees on an ongoing basis. And that's where things are falling apart. So it's always on the implementation side of things. Okay, so now how do you come up with these uncommon subjects? You got to, again, research that target population. So do a survey of the sorts of programs and services your clients have taken, and try to understand what they felt was worthwhile and effective and what was ineffective. So, for example, one of the ways that we suggest people who use the change grid market themselves is to go to a company that is currently using any sort of a psychometric tool, whether they're using the disc profile or Berkman or insights or whatever it is. You know, the Lord knows there's dozens and dozens of psychometric tools that are out there that people have glommed onto and like for whatever reasons. And you know, we're not going to debate which one's good, bad, better, worse. I don't really care about that. I'm just saying, we say go and find a company who is actively using one of those tools. Now ask them, what was the experience like? Did they enjoy it? Did they get things out of it? What did they get out of it? I mean, ask them a lot about their experience around that psychometric tool. And then ask them what they felt the long term effect was. So, what's really happened as a result of people having that? How has that translated into behavioral changes, teamwork, whatever? I mean, we really want to interview the company to really understand what's going on. And the reason why we want to do that is so we can say to them, now, the change grid used as a natural follow up to that psychometric tool could make a dramatic increase on the return you're getting in the investment you made in the tool to begin with. And so and again, this isn't a program on the change grid, but nevertheless, you know, this is where you come in and just say, wait, this is something that is missing. This is something where that is they feel like it didn't work out for them, was ineffective because it didn't make any lasting change or whatever. Positioning the change grid as a tool to help them with that transfer of awareness into actual behavioral change and the behavioral change into an actual impact on the bottom line. This is what the change grid actually does. And so, how would we be able to position it if we didn't learn at a certain point in time that is interesting and entertaining and insightful as people have found those psychometric experiences? The harsh truth is that it doesn't make the long term impact that they were hoping that it would. So they'll always remember, oh, I tested out to be a whatever. And they might even use the language a little bit here and there, but it really hasn't translated itself into those lasting behavioral changes, mostly because it hasn't been, you know, supported appropriately or coached around. And so this is what I'm talking about. Take something that's in place and now add something to it. Position yourself based on research. Obviously, there is a reason why we decided to create the Institute for Productive Tension. We study this, and based on our research, we get lots of insights about where things are going right or wrong for whatever population we happen to be studying. Well, we do that because we do find the work interesting, but we also do it because it shows us where the opportunity is for us to be of service in a way that translates into a revenue stream. And so when we're talking about what we do, we can say the reason why we're doing it is because this is what the data shows. This is what we've learned. This is what we know is really going on. And so indicate in your marketing that your programs or services provide whatever it is that meets the negative aspects usually of the research, because usually it's about the research is either showing that there's a problem area that isn't being addressed, and sometimes it shows that there's a great I want to say surplus of talent that isn't being leveraged, isn't being exploited. But usually, the reason why they engage services is because there's an unaddressed problem or an unsatisfied need that we could ultimately help them with that. So, but position yourself that what you're doing is based on research. Now, don't think you've got to create an institute and do high-end scientific academic level research. You don't have to do that. You can do it as informal research, and this is why I think it's so good for you to have a survey front end in your marketing. And in a few weeks' time, when we start getting into the marketing approach, I will be talking about research-based marketing and using surveys as conversation starters and things like that. But you can do these informal surveys, and as long as you are collecting and compiling the data, at a certain point in time, you go like, wow, I'm seeing some patterns here. And then you start to document and share those patterns with others, and you're doing that. So there's a lot of things you can do by basing things on research, but you're only going to differentiate yourself if you tell them this is what the research was, this is what the research showed, and so this is why we're doing this. We didn't just pull this out of thin air. This is something that actually had some real science behind it. Um, Next thing you do for program differentiation is to make sure that you are using niche specific labels. So label your programs in a niche specific manner. So take whatever programs you've got and then refine those materials so they apply directly to the subject or to the client you're dealing with. So for example, if you've got a program on building relationships. You don't want to call your program building relationships. You want to call it something like how to build relationships with um, high end prospects during an economic downturn in the accounting industry. So let's give them a label for whatever program you do that says, oh, that's what I really need to know. So let's just don't say 10 ways to sell more. Say, here's 10 ways that financial planners can sell more to educators in this fiscal year, whatever. So put in place a couple of little identifier words that the ideal population would resonate with. So they go like, oh, he's just named my industry. This must apply to me. Or, oh, he's naming a situation that I know I'm dealing with. So I've always said that your program may be pretty much, gelled. It is what it is. But the title you put on that program can be many, many, many different things. You just want to be willing to modify the title labels so that the population that you're targeting really resonates with it. Um, let's see. Another thing that I talked about here is that you have to let your subjects evolve. If you've been doing a particular program for a long time and you got lots of clients who went through that program, I don't want you to think like, well, they've already gone through that program. There's, what else can I do? You want to have a new edition or, a dated edition. This is the 2014 edition. This is a 2020 edition. Let them know that because you continue to do your research, because you continue to work to become a specialist in this industry, develop your expertise around it, your subject matter has also evolved over time. And so if you want to get some repeat business from some of these prior clients, maybe just updating your program, updating the materials, and updating the title of it to include new edition, 2014 edition, could be something to at least get them to stop and say, oh, what are you up to? How is that different? What is that going on with you? So let's see, continue to evolve yourself with additional programs your clients would value, and your value increases. So not just letting the subject itself evolve, but maybe even the set of subjects could evolve as well. If you only have one program or one service to offer, your usefulness to a client will diminish. And so we have to make sure you've got broad enough offering and enough evolution in what you're offering to be able to differentiate that program. Now we have just a few minutes left, and wow, just like last time, I'm halfway through this material at the end of 1 hour. And so, all right, so I guess we're just going to continue this next week. As much as I'd like to do 52 different subjects in 52 weeks, we're going to just have to see how that all actually all turns out. I don't want to force it to fit into an hour if the subject matter is of interest to you guys. So a little bit of feedback there would be good. We still have to talk about, I'll flip through the screens here, service differentiators, style differentiators, and image differentiation. So lots of things left to talk about. So if you have no objections, we will continue this subject on next week's call. And if it ends up taking longer than a year to go through all the material, well, then so be it.